An old school word, standards. Standards, Standards. Hey, God bless you guys. This is Eric. And I debated TJump, otherwise known as TJump. I want to say something that I've learned a lot about debates in the last many years, many decades. And, I've seen all kinds of things happen in a debate. One thing that I've learned is that there are two kinds of debate and two kinds of debater. There are people to whom winning is absolutely everything. It doesn't matter what the subject is, what the topic is. It doesn't matter what the evidence is. It doesn't matter if they have a winning case or a losing case. It doesn't matter if they have to lie openly. Winning is everything. And then there's some people to whom winning means very little. I mean, it's always nice to win, let's be honest, but what's more important to some people is truth. And so when they engage in a debate, they're not pulling whatever they need to pull to win. They're sticking within certain standards, personal standards, and they are on a pursuit for truth. Now, when we enter into a debate as truth tellers and truth seekers, we enter in usually, sometimes not, but usually believing that we are right. But also recognizing the fact that, somebody's got to be wrong and everybody believes they're right. So we might be, in fact, the ones that are wrong. We got to be a little bit humble about this so that we can be charitable towards everybody. And so somebody has got to be wrong in this. Everybody believes they're right. So we are in it for the truth, though, which means that if I run across evidence that is contrary to that which I believe, then I've got to revise what I believe, or at least ask why and look into why this evidence seems to conflict. What's the problem with this? That's what truth tellers do. So when TJump's friend contacted me in email asking me if I would come and debate TJump, I contacted TJump because he happened to be one of my friends on Facebook. Not that we're friends, because we're not. He doesn't even know me. But I did know who he was, and I've watched him simply because he is an atheist, and I debate atheists. So I contacted TJump immediately, and I accepted. I didn't care that it was on his channel. I didn't care that it was with no moderator. None of these things mattered to me. I didn't care that there were no rules. Then he just said it would be a conversation on the searching the question out. What gives the best explanation of the situation we find around us today, zoologically, with all the various myriads forms of life on Earth? What best explains this? Is it evolution or creation? Now, you see, I went into this pretty much knowing what all of his arguments would be, and I think he did finally figure out. He did search me out a little bit and found out some of my explanations, some of the things that I debate. But I knew that if I can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that our very best science today, the best science we have, tells us through experimentation, actual experimentation that gives us figures, that it's not possible that these dinosaur bones are even 1 million years old. They can't possibly be. And the evidence indicates that they are recently deceased. For instance, within the last 12,000 years. I knew that if I could prove this, that this was the best science that we have available to us right now, the best figures that we have, and it is, that I won this debate hands down, and so I accepted. And so I knew that, if things went awry, I would have the testimony of my debate that did take place, and I'm going to place it in whole in these videos along with this, which cuts out the small talk, takes me right to the beginning of my debate, and right into the argument that made him rage quit on his own channel, because he knew that he was caught in too many mistruths, and he knew I was not going to back down, and he knew that I knew it, and he knew that I had the information and the wherewithal to prove that he was not telling the truth. And that, yes, there is no time for evolution. You're about to see it. God bless you guys. I hope you enjoy. I love you.
Eric, thanks for coming on. Appreciate you taking the time to have a conversation with me. Would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Well, good morning, Tom. Thank you for having this discussion with me. My name is Eric, and I've been a Bible student for a long time. I've been a Christian for a long time. What evidence do you think disproves the flood?
The fact that there are trees older than the flood, and if it had flooded, they'd all die. The fact that there are animals all over the world that couldn't have gotten there if after there was a flood, like kangaroos could not have jumped across the Atlantic Ocean after landing in wherever the ark landed. It's not physically possible. The number of species on the planet are way too much. There's literally not enough water on the planet to flood the planet. The amount of energy released for flooding the planet would have vaporized everything. It's literally physically impossible. Pretty much disproved in every scientific field.
That would be if I guess that would be if all the timelines were right, but I don't believe the timelines are right. I think that there is abundant evidence of the flood, and more scientists are beginning to agree with me. I can point this out.
I know a lot of the scientists. That's not the case. I believe something like 99.999% all say it's wrong, and then some creationists say it's right. But that number is not increasing; it's decreasing, and it's only the only ones who do agree are Christian or Abrahamic religions. Nobody in any non-Abrahamic religion actually supports any of that data.
Okay, now let's fact check this ridiculous little statement here. I get this all the time, and even Neil deGrasse Tyson admits that the majority of scientists believe in God. And let's look at this interesting little thing from Pew Research, where they actually broke it down by discipline, and you'll see the majority of scientists believe in a God. And when you get to the medical profession, it's the vast majority of doctors that believe not just in a God, but also in an afterlife. Could it be because they're in a position to know this is true? I think so. And it looks to me like TJump is already, he already knows he's fighting a losing battle, and he's having to resort to a gross untruth. Oh well. Let's move on.
Scientist, do you believe in God?
So in the West, there's 2/3 of scientists pray to a personal God on the expectation it will intervene in their day's affairs.
I can actually prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that they're wrong on that, that the timing is wrong, and do this scientifically. The work is already done to prove that. What's that now?
What timing? Because I didn't bring up any timing. I just said most scientists disagree. Which timing?
Well, the timing of the flood. Like you're saying that you're assuming that the flood was how long ago?
6,000 years ago.
Yeah. Why? I don't know why anybody would assume that. You're not the only one to assume that. I'll give you that. There are some Christians that would say it was, 4,000, 6,000 years ago, but I don't believe that.
Okay.
I believe that the flood occurred many thousands of years ago, approximately 12,000 years ago, during the Younger Dryas age. And there's ample evidence of this worldwide.
Again, all historians, all archaeologists would disagree with that. All geologists would disagree with that. There are civilizations
Not
who were
all.
alive 12,000 years ago, and 13, and 11, and 10, and so it's not the case that it's possible. There's lots of evidence of lots of local floods, and local floods were then used as the impetus to write stories in many cultures, which is why they're the same. But there's no evidence of a global.
Now, what do we got? I'm betting TJump doesn't know about the Triassic flooding, but yeah, there's ample evidence that there have been worldwide floods. The only reason they don't acknowledge Noah's flood is that they hide it. They hide the flood in what they call the Triassic period. They admit that the world was flooded, but they just say that it happened tens of millions of years ago, over a 2 million year period. That way they can hide it. Hey. And they can tell the Christians, look, there's no evidence for a worldwide flood. All the while, every fossil in all of these formations are evidence of a worldwide flood. Agree with me? Do you agree with me that during the days of the dinosaur, let's say the Jurassic and Cretaceous age, would you agree that scientists say that the Earth was in a state of Pangea?
Yes, you mean where all of the continents were connected?
Yes. Okay, there's step one right there. Because you don't have to, if the Earth is in a state of Pangea, when the flood occurs, you don't have to have animals swimming to Australia or animals swimming to the South Pole. If the flood occurs during a state of Pangea, and I submit that it did. If the scientists agree that the Jurassic and Cretaceous era, when the dinosaurs walked the face of the Earth, if they actually agree that the Earth was in a state of Pangea during that time, then it wouldn't take so much we don't know the state of the mountains. We don't know how high the mountains were when the Earth was in a state of Pangea. As a matter of fact, it was probably just getting ready to break apart. And so, chances are mountainous areas would be small anyway. Mountains would not be nearly as high as they are right now. But you see, we have proof that the dinosaurs couldn't have lasted that long anyway. And I know you know about the soft dinosaur tissue.
Well, those are possible
if you
for long periods. If there's no oxygen, if you trap it in an environment, it will stay soft. That doesn't actually prove timelines whatsoever. You can do that for infinitely as long as you want, and as long as you don't have any way to evaporate the liquid, it'll stay soft forever. So scientists have already debunked that like immediately. That was a creationist claim that was never backed up by science.
Hey, babe, see that dinosaur bone over there? Yeah, that one. Yeah, okay, yeah, grab me that bone. Bring it on over here, throw it in that dirt over there. In that hole. I want you to go ahead and pour some water over it, and cover it over with dirt, and then pour some more water over it. Just keep it wet for the next 80 million years. And, I need you to preserve me some soft tissue, okay? Yeah, I don't think it works that way, dude. Well, you see, I've gone a lot deeper than just looking at the surface here. I've actually looked at all of the scientific papers regarding this and studied them.
Oh, we lost connection. Hey, you back?
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
No
I
problem.
think I hit the wrong thing. Okay, but what I can do, I I can pull this up for you and show you Mary's work. I don't know if I can share this, but I can put a link in our Facebook chat here for you. And that way you can follow along what I'm talking about here. But if you were to pull this up, this is Mary Schweitzer's paper. Now, one of the things that Mary Schweitzer did, everybody knows that she found the soft tissue in the T-Rex bone. A lot of people aren't aware that she found it in more than one dinosaur. She also found it in a hadrosaur that they say was 88 million years old. But if you go down to the abstract, you're going to find out something really interesting. That they have been finding the soft tissue going back almost 100 years. This mentions back to the 1960s, but she does another paper where they talk about the soft tissue going back nearly 100 years. But what they find here, you see, half-lives matter. Everything has, like biological tissues and etc., have half-lives. And so at the end of, I'm sure you know how a half-life works, Tom. At the end of the first half-life, you've only got 50% of whatever substance you're measuring there. At the end of a second half-life, you've only got 25%. At the end of the third half-life, you've only got 12.5%.
Well, that's for atoms, like uranium, deuterium, plutonium. Those have half-lives.
Now, this just shows you that he's willing to just pull something out of the air, because apparently he doesn't even know that biological tissues have half-lives. He makes a mistake that most atheists make. And when they try to argue this position, they don't even know it. He's assuming that only radioactive substances have half-lives. No. Biological tissues have half-lives too, substances, proteins and etc. Like, for instance, collagen has half-life, and there's different types of collagen. Like, vascular collagen has a half-life of like 60 to 70 days. Skin collagen is 15 years. The collagen that you find in cartilage is 117 years. So yes, these things do have half-lives.
Half-lives are like regular things like carbon are millions, hundreds of thousands of years. Like, it's a long time.
He just can't stop pulling things out of the air. No, Tom. The half-life of C-14 is only 5,730 years, my friend. 5,730, give or take 40. Well, carbon, C-14 has a half-life of 5,730 years. But biological tissues have half-lives too. Biological agents, like, for instance, collagen. There's different types of collagen. There's vascular collagen. Now, vascular collagen is what they find in, of course, bloodstream, etc. It's only got a half-life of 60 to 70 days. But then there's skin collagen, which has a half-life of 15 years. But then there's the collagen you have in your cartilage. It has a half-life of 117 years. Now, at the end of 10 half-lives, you basically have none of the original element left that's measurable, a measurable amount for you to work with. So basically, that's why after 57,000 years, they generally don't carbon-14 test anything. Because after 10 half-lives, it's basically pointless to test. So 1,117 years is 10 half-lives for collagen. But
well, no, that's not the case. It changes based on whether it's being preserved or not. So, like,
well, that's what I'm about to show you here.
Well, so I just checked the papers, and rather than disproving evolution, the discovery of soft tissue in dinosaur bones actually supports the idea of evolution by providing new insights into the genetic and physical characteristics of each animal. Scientists have shown that soft tissue in bones can be survived for millions of years, depending upon the way in which it is buried and protected from scavengers and other forms of decay. So,
yes, the question is, how long can it be preserved? What's the longest they've been able to preserve this?
well, we
you know?
haven't been able to preserve it. We don't. Doesn't matter if we preserve it. Nature can preserve it indefinitely. It's pretty much forever.
Two ridiculous things Tom says here in a matter of seconds. Number one, that we haven't been able to preserve it at all. Of course we have. That's exactly what Mary Schweitzer's tests were intended to do, to see exactly how long we could preserve the stability in the half-lives of these biological proteins. And the most she was able to get was a 200-fold increase. Unfortunately, to get 1,170 years to reach to 65 million years, she needed a 55,555-fold increase in stability, and only got a 200-fold increase in stability. So it's not possible, according to these tests, the best scientific data to date, it's not possible for those bones to be over 234,000 years old. Not even possible. The second ridiculous thing that he says here is that nature can preserve these things indefinitely, these biological materials. Nature preserves them indefinitely, he says. If that were so, we wouldn't have half-lives, because they do not preserve indefinitely in nature. Well, actually, we have been able to preserve it, and we've been able to push the limits on how far we've been able to preserve it. If you look down at the abstract, she actually says, and I'm going to quote here, the persistence of original soft tissues in Mesozoic fossil bone is not explained by the current chemical degradation models. In other words, we don't have a way to explain this sort of preservation.
Well, actually, maybe at the time she wrote the paper, that's true, but we have actually fully explained it today. We've completely explained it.
No, we haven't.
We have. We've completely explained it.
Well, I'm about to go on, and if you can point out any longer preservation, please do.
Well, we have preservation of biological mass in ice, which lasts forever. If you freeze it, it lasts forever.
Well, no, not forever.
Yeah, forever.
I'm gonna point something out to you here. Okay, now, why don't we carbon-14 test anything that's over 60,000 years old?
It's not accurate above 50,000 years or something like that.
And why isn't it?
Because of different ways in which the carbon can be introduced into the system, and so it only lasts based off how it's introduced into the organism. Yes, that's why.
The reason that they stop after 57,000 years is because there shouldn't be any of it left. It's measurable, period. Okay. Now, there are cases where it can be preserved longer than the average. The average for C14, like I said, is 5,700 years, but the average for the collagen, at the very most, is 117 years. At the end of 10 half-lives, you've only got 1,170 years. But if you look at what Mary found, she was able, through iron and oxygen, the iron that's found in the hemoglobin of ostrich blood, she was able to use this to preserve these proteins 200-fold, from approximately 3 days to more than 2 years.
So I just checked it. After 50,000 years, there are other sources of carbon that can contaminate the sample, making it difficult to accurately determine the origin of the C14. So I was correct. That is the reason, because other sources can contaminate the sample at that point.
So then nothing is reliable. No dating is reliable. If you're going to throw carbon-14 testing under the bus, you've got to throw all testing under the bus because
it's the reason is once you get to that long, the levels of carbon can be introduced by other sources to make it unreliable at that 50,000 year mark. Before that, it works fine.
I am beginning to wonder, Tom, if you didn't get you said got a degree? I don't know. Are you getting your degree from Mayberry RFD? You can trust them C14 tests clear up to 50,000 years, and that's when they all go bad. They just all go bad. And if you got a dinosaur bone, well, you just can't trust it with that's for sure. Because it's going to lie to you absolutely every single time. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's what they told us here in Mayberry.
Everything can be seeped in and seeped out.
No, it's the amount
simple
that can enter a system through random processes would only be significant after that amount of decay. So after 50,000 years, when there's minuscule amounts left, that minuscule amounts can be contaminated by external sources. That's why it's only accurate to that stage. So the amount that can be entered into the system externally is usually pretty small, but it's enough that it would contaminate the data at that measurement level.
I think people are covering their butts for the fact that there is carbon-14 found in absolutely every single sample of dinosaur bone that's ever been tested, to my knowledge.
Yes, because it can be entered in from other sources.
Isn't that odd?
Game over, checkmate. What more can I say? He admits that every single one out there, every single one that's ever been tested has come back C14 rich. Every single one. It's ridiculous to think that every single one was contaminated. He concedes the testing with Mary. He has nothing to show any increase greater than 200-fold. And when it comes to the increase of stability and preservation, Mary gives us 200-fold, and that's the best anybody has given us through testing. So he has nothing to come back with. One proves that it can't even be 250,000 years old. Dinosaurs can't have died out more than 250,000 years ago, according to one test. And according to these others, they were walking the earth between 9 and 49,000 years ago. So there you go. Game, set, match. There's no time for evolution, dude. You don't have time during all this time in the last many thousand years for a relative to give birth to chimps and humans, or for a concedes to evolve into a whale, or for anything, dude, to evolve. No, you just don't have it. So hands down, it's much more practical to believe in creation. Evolution is proven to be wrong.
No.
Because, okay, now let's look at this, though. Hemoglobin increased the tissue stability, according to the abstract here of Mary's paper. Hemoglobin increased the tissue stability by more than 200-fold, from approximately 3 days to 2 years. So, that's all they were able to get out of this, Tom. 200-fold increase. Now, if you have a 1,170 years, which is the extent of that collagen, by the end of 1,170 years, there shouldn't be any left. And yet, we're supposed to believe in 65 million year old piece of bone is still living? I don't think so. They said that was impossible when it was first found. All of the critics told Mary Schweitzer, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know biofilm from biological stuff. And she earned her PhD by proving that this was indeed soft tissue. But the important thing here, the important number is the 200-fold increase. To go from 1,170 years to 65 million years, you need a 55,555-fold increase. Not a 200-fold increase.
Not sure what your argument. So I googled it. Carbon-14 can be added to dinosaur bones in a number of ways, such as exposure to
we're not talking about carbon-14 here, brother.
We're
not talking about carbon-14.
Applies to anything. We said there was no carbon. Why is there carbon in dinosaur bones? So I wanted to address that real quick.
I think you're misunderstanding my argument. I'm not talking about carbon-14. I'm talking about the...
Well, I wanted to address this argument because thought I heard you say. Maybe you didn't. It doesn't really make a difference. Carbon-14 has a half-life of 50,000 years, should be gone after a few 100,000 years. Why is it in dinosaur bones? One, because contamination of groundwater, contamination of air, contamination of other tools, and
Well, they can explain it away any way they want. The point
this
is
isn't
there.
explaining it away. This is just facts. Like,
Well, it
can
is explaining it away.
carbon-14 be entered into a system from other things? It's not explaining it away. This is a fact. We know this is a fact.
But here's the point, Tom. Here's the point. The point that you're not getting, brother.
What's the point?
It's a 200-fold increase,
Of what?
only 200-fold increase.
Of what?
You can't show me an increase in stability.
He asks a 200-fold increase of what? He doesn't even know what we're talking about now. Wow.
Greater than 200-fold.
What
Not
is,
in testing.
what is the 200% increase of what? What are we talking about?
It's not 200% increase. It's a 200-fold increase.
Of what?
I'm in the abstract. Mary's abstract.
Yeah, but what are we talking about? 200-fold increase of what? What are we talking about?
The tissue stability that she tested. She took, right here, according to the abstract, they took a sample of protein, and this protein that probably was used has a 3-day or so half-life to it, because it says that they went from approximately 3 days to they were able to preserve it for 2 years. It should have been gone in 3 days, but they were able to preserve it for 2 years. They had a 200-fold increase in stability preservation. So that means that instead of 1,170 years, a 200-fold increase, 200-fold, would extend that to 234,000 years. That's all you have for this particular protein.
So in one experiment, which they did relatively recently, they found they could do this.
This was not one experiment recently done. This was many experiments. This was hundreds of experiments.
Right. So do you think we've discovered every way to preserve soft tissue?
No, but we've certainly discovered the longest one so far is 200-fold.
Right. So of the very limited amount of research we've done in the field, we've already found one.
This is not limited amount. I don't know how you can say this is a limited amount, Tom.
We've just discovered
We've
this.
done all kinds
No.
of research on this, trying to.
So this is basic
figure
science.
out-
We only know 1/1,000,000th of 1% of anything. That's just scientific fact. We don't know everything.
Well, look, if
So-
you want
so
to hang
this
on hopes
discovery-
and dreams, you
wait,
can, Tom.
Wait. So this
Tom, on claiming ignorance is your best move. I'd say you've been all over this discussion, but everywhere but a comfortable position.
discovery, which is a relatively recent research into the field, has discovered already that we can go back 200,000 years with very
By
limited research.
relatively
In the
recent,
field.
what do you mean by relatively recent?
Humans haven't been just researching this for thousands of years. This is a relatively recent discovery. So of the few,
This is from 2014.
right. So it's a recent discovery, recent
It's
research.
nearly 10 years old, dude.
Right. So we haven't been researching the field for very long, which means we haven't even come close to discovering the oldest ways.
Do you want us
to?
Do you really want
Oh
us
my
to
God.
think that?
Stop
we haven't done
interrupting.
any
Stop
more-
interrupting. We have not discovered the ways, just based off of what you said. This is one of the earliest forms of research in the field, and it's already discovered a way to preserve it for 200,000 years. I've already told you of ways we could preserve it for hundreds of millions of years by using ice.
No, Tom. Not one of these were dug out of the ice, buddy. Every single one of them were dug out of the rock. No one anywhere claims that ice has preserved dinosaur tissue.
No. That
Yes.
dude. Show me the test on that.
Show you the test on that. We actually have like
On your-
mammoths
on your
frozen in
theory.
ice. We have mammoths frozen in ice that are
And
soft
for how
tissue.
long? That's not millions of years.
Yes, that's millions of years. We have millions of years. So let's say oldest.
That's not millions of years. The
soft
mammoths caught in
tissue
ice, dude, in the North Pole and the South Pole and stuff.
in
They're only
ice.
thousands of years old.
68
They're not-
million year old tissue found in ice.
Where?
I don't know. I'm just livescience.com. I'm
And how
I'm
do
just
they
reading
know
the
it's 68
titles
million years old?
by doing the other kinds of dating methods that we already have.
Which one?
Don't know. It's the same ones that we know
You
for a
don't
fact
know.
work.
Do you know how the dating methods work?
Yes, there's a number of them. One we can use geological
Okay, let's
dating.
say
one
somebody's
we can
going to use uranium
I don't. The decay methods have been proven; they work. You don't get to deny them; they work 100%. Because
uranium lead.
Wait. So all of the dating methods 100% work, and we can prove they work because they make novel testable predictions. Novel testable predictions prove that they work. But
let me show you how ridiculous that is.
More confirmatory evidence. Even if you didn't think they work, we can prove that they work by comparing it to geological timescales and say, we know how fast geological forms can become about. We know that this layer is a particular age, and this layer only has these fossils. And so we can say if we find another one of those fossils, some other location, it's always going to be at the exact same comparative layer anywhere in the world.
Dude, it ain't that pretty, and you know it.
What?
It don't happen that way in nature, and you know it.
It does. It does happen that way.
No, it doesn't. They find them all over the place, dude.
They find them at the exact same layer everywhere.
We find ocean animals mixed in with reptiles, mixed in with mammals. It happens, dude.
No, they're all at the same layer. The layers can be mixed because, like, the layers,
of course, they are.
Place, but they're all at the same
layer. You find things
layer.
mixed up all the time. Like you find malachite, man, in the 110 million year old rock, and they say, "Oh, well, this isn't really mankind that was ancient. No, this was mankind that was suffered in a cave collapse."
Yeah,
and they're not even talking about the same site.
Yeah.
There's two different sites there.
But what I said was they are found in the same layer. The layers are formed in such a way that the layer is consistent between all of the rocks.
Yeah, and mankind was found in 110 million year old rock. That doesn't work, dude.
Yes, like
that shows you something's wrong.
No.
So what do? They say, oh, well, these aren't really bones. These bones aren't really 110 million years old. They seeped down into those rocks.
Yeah, so like if I bury something deep underground, it will be surrounded by rocks that are far much older than it. That's very, very simple to understand. But if I want to,
that rock doesn't form around it, then
right? And it didn't.
You see, these are found buried in the rock, dude.
Right, that's what
so
happens.
They are as old as the rock.
But we can tell the difference. This is very, very, very simple. Very simple.
You don't even know about malachite, man.
This is extremely simple. Extremely simple. Extremely simple. So a cave-in.
You don't want me to make a point.
No,
that's
you've
okay.
already made the point, and I'm trying to respond, and you keep interrupting. Your point is wrong because when there is a cave-in, all of the layers get mixed up. They get broken apart, and we can literally see the layers in the rock are not.
That's
aligned.
The point. There was no cave, and it was solid rock.
You're still interrupting. We can tell. Stop. You're still interrupting. I'm going to mute you. We can tell the difference between any kind of geological event that took place that mixes up the layers and where the actual layers are. You're still interrupting. You're still interrupting. We know the layers.
It don't matter to you.
I'm trying to give me a chance to answer. I need to be able to respond to your point, and then you can speak again. So your argument is proven false. Because we can tell the difference between a rock that is formed in a geological layer and a rock that is a combination of a bunch of different layers due to some kind of earthquakes or tectonic shifts or cave-ins or anything.
This was solid rock. It was not busted up.
It was busted up.
It was solid rock.
Solid. I don't think you understand here. A rock being
solid. It was solid rock.
That's a dumb argument. It doesn't matter if the rock is solid. What matters is are the layers individualized? There's a different. A solid rock can form in many ways. Lava can form a solid rock. Obviously,
and they
it's not
were
going to be the same layer. So solid rock is not an argument. Solid rock does not matter. What matters is are the geological layers straight, just like in all the Grand Canyon? And the answer is no. The one you're listing, the malachite, man, it was of a cave-in or something to cause a jumbled mess of all the layers, which shows that no, the dinosaur, the bones that were trapped in it would not be the same age.
You can't prove that, Tom.
I can prove that. That literally.
But look at this. Look at this. What is a 200-fold increase, Tom? Do you have anything that gives you more than a 200-fold increase?
In what?
Yes or no? Or is 200 the best you got?
For what? For soft tissue?
Yeah.
Yes. Ice will do it. If you freeze it at absolute zero.
No. I want to see the test. See, I've got the test in front of me.
No. This is a proven test.
I've got the numbers. I've got the numbers in front of me.
Soft tissue forever at really close to zero temperatures. This is a fact of science. I don't know. Now? You can preserve any object at close to zero indefinitely Forever.
We don't have any ice on this earth that's been around that long, dude.
I didn't say we did. You just wanted an example. You said,
Okay,
do you have an
we
example
don't.
of something that can
So you don't
preserve-
have a single. You don't have a single thing that's going to give you better.
No,
Than
no, no.
a
You asked
200-fold
for,
increase.
do we have an example of something that can preserve longer than
No,
200,000
no, no.
years?
I want a tested example.
I did.
I
gave
want
you
to see
one.
the test.
I did. That was one. We have done this. We have done this test. This is a test.
Show
that
me a
exists.
test, Tom.
How long can ice preserve soft tissue? Let's see.
So you're going to go to
Millions,
Google.
Hundreds of millions. Yes, we can preserve it. With
Hundreds of
ice.
millions. Show me a 100-million-year-old piece of ice, Tom.
Okay. Oldest ice found. The oldest one we have collected right now is 800,000 years. That's the deepest we've gone down.
Hey, there you go. Thank you. You don't have a 1,000,000-year-old piece of ice, so
We
no.
don't need a 1,000,000-year-old piece of ice
So
to
no.
be able.
That means
what you
that
said
you
is
don't
stupid.
have
What-
anything in
what you
ice
said is
that's
stupid.
1,000,000 years old,
What you
dude.
just said is stupid.
Nothing.
What you just said is stupid.
You don't have no way.
So
You
I
don't
never
have
claimed we had
anything.
ice.
Okay, Tom.
Wait,
Look,
stop,
if
stop,
you don't want to
stop,
hear,
stop.
if you don't want to hear the facts here,
No, you
And
have to listen. You have to
that's
listen to what
okay.
I'm saying.
You don't have
made a
to.
claim. What is the oldest we can preserve something? I said hundreds of millions of years in ice. Then you said, give
And
me an
we
example of
can't
ice.
because we
I don't need to give you an example of ice that old to be
Okay,
able
so
to
you don't have
preserve something in
anything.
ice.
You don't have
No,
anything.
stop talking and listen. Listen to what I'm saying. I'm trying to help you understand here. You asked how long can we preserve something in
Look,
ice?
don't talk down to me, son.
You need to be talked down to because you're
Look,
not
you are
intelligent.
less than half my age,
You are
Tom.
muted.
You're
muted.
not as learned.
You are muted. We cannot hear you. You have to listen. When you ask one question, how long can we preserve something? And I give you an answer, then asking for an example of that thing in reality that we have preserved is called a non sequitur. I do not need to do that. I do not need to show an exact example that we have literally done this. Like I can say I've done a backflip. Does that mean I've done one? No, it does not mean I've actually done one. So asking for a particular example of the thing which I'm saying is possible is a non sequitur. This is basic philosophy. If you don't understand that, that is because you are not qualified in the field of philosophy. I am qualified in the field of philosophy, also qualified in these other fields. You not understanding is not an argument. You do not need to give a particular example of multi-million-year-old ice in order to show it's possible to preserve things in ice forever.
What scientific field are you qualified in, Tom?
All of them.
All of them. Let me see your credentials.
Google it.
You don't have any credentials, dude.
I have more credentials than you. Do you have an argument?
I don't need any credentials. I have.
You're unqualified in all of these fields. I don't care. I didn't ask for your credentials because I don't care what your credentials are. I'm interested in the arguments and the evidence, not credentials. I know all of these fields. I'm qualified in all these fields. I have experts on all of these fields. Do you have any arguments or evidence? Because I've disproved everything you've said. Absolutely everything, easily. Do you have any arguments or evidence?
Overtalk me to run from these figures because you don't have anything that trumps
I
them.
addressed your figures. I disproved them.
I have. No, you didn't address anything. You just deny it.
How did I not
She has a
address the figures?
200-fold increase, dude.
I don't care.
A 200-fold increase in stability. You don't have anything
Is that a proof?
testable.
Does that prove
You don't
that is
have
wrong?
anything tested. You don't have
Wait, wait.
one. See, you can't
you
let me
think-
finish a sentence,
Do
can
you
you?
think that
Look,
that
if you
200
can't
year
let me
increase-
finish a sentence, Tom,
You're muted. Shut up. Do you think that 200-fold increase is the longest it's possible in any possible way to maintain soft tissue? Is that the longest way and there are no other ways? Is that what you're saying?
it's the longest thing you've got, son.
No, it's not. It's the longest
But-
thing you've
yes,
got.
it is.
It's the longest you've got.
It's the longest thing you've
No,
got. You can't
this
show
is
me
your
anything.
argument.
You can't
I've got
show
plenty
me-
of examples.
You know, show me one.
Ice. Debunked.
What?
Ice
Well, let me
can store
show
soft
me.
tissue
You just said
forever.
you just said you don't have a piece that's over
I don't need a piece
800,000
of
years
ice
old.
to know how ice works. You can
Then
know how it
ice
works.
did not
without having an
preserve
example.
this, son.
No, you not
Ice did not
understanding how
preserve that.
ice works is not an argument against
Ice has
being
nothing to
preserved.
do with it if it don't have an 80
I
million
don't
year old
need
piece of
a
ice.
particular example to know
That
it
means you
works.
don't have anything
No.
preserved by ice,
No.
son.
Again, you're a moron. You not understanding that you
Then
can
show
do
me the
something
piece of.
and you
Show
did
me
do
what you
something.
have preserved in
I
ice.
don't need to preserve one to know
Show
it
me.
can be done.
Okay, so you don't have nothing.
No,
preserved
you're an
in
idiot. I don't need one.
ice.
I can know
Is that
how it
well?
works
You
without
lost
having
this
to do
debate,
it.
son. You have to
What don't you understand
resort
about
to
this?
calling.
Can you know how something works
If you're going to
without having
resort
an
to
example?
calling me an idiot, you
Can
don't
you
have
know?
anything.
Can you know how something works without actually having an example?
So you don't have anything that
Can
gives you
you
more
know
than
how
200 years.
something works without having an example? Yes or no?
You're afraid of this conversation.
Can you know how something works without having an example? Yes or no?
All I want to know is,
Yes
do
or
you have
no?
anything that
Can
gives
you know how something works without having an example?
Yeah, no, not necessarily. No.
Yes, yes, you can't. Name one thing that you can't know how it works without having an example.
Well, all you got then is speculation.
Name
Dude.
an example where we know how something works, but we don't have an example.
Go ahead, tell us. Give us one of those.
Sure, everything. We
Give
know
me
how
one of your
everything works.
examples.
Like people in college, they build things, but like they're told how an airplane works, but they don't actually have an airplane there. They're told how a car works. They don't have a car there. They're told how the clouds work. They don't have a cloud there. Everything they learn about. They're told how toroidal forces in a hurricane work. They don't have a hurricane there. Everything you learn, you understand how it works without having a particular example by using math, by using comparative analysis, by knowing the physics
In other
of
words,
the
you got
equation.
that.
So if I know how it works, if I know what happens when you put an organic material into ice and how it slows down the decay of the material to make sure it can be preserved,
Dude,
I know
nothing
exactly
was
the rate.
preserved that way, dude.
There are hundreds of thousands of things preserved that way.
Not,
What are you
not
talking
from
about?
the date, not from 80 million
I
years
don't
ago.
care. That's a different topic. You asked.
So
Can things
what
be
you're
preserved?
offering is a straw man.
Stop.
You don't have anything to give me that's
You're
reasonable.
muted. You're muted. You made a claim that it was 200,000 years were the longest things could be preserved. I said, no, that's stupid. That's just this one example. And you asked for an alternative example of something that can be longer. I gave you one. I proved we can do it. And now you're changing the topic to, well, how do you do it in this one particular case? I don't know how to do it in the particular case because I don't know the examples of what that particular case is. But I know we can preserve things for longer than 200,000 years, which was the point of the conversation. And I debunked you. And then you tried to change the topic. That's dishonesty because you are trying to evade the facts that you are wrong, which is why every scientist, every philosopher, everyone who's an expert in this field who actually does understand these knows creationism is dumb. It has been proven wrong. It is a pseudoscience. We have proven it wrong beyond any shadow of a doubt.
Folks, these bones can't be over 50,000 years old,
They
according
are.
to science.
No,
And TJump has nothing.
I'm just going to remove it. I'm done with this. All right. How are you guys doing? Amy, that's a good one. Amber can preserve things too.
Scientist, do you believe in God?
So in the West, there's 2/3 of scientists pray to a personal God on the expectation it will intervene in their day's affairs.
First of all, I'd like to thank TJump for being such a wonderful, magnanimous host. And I'd like to thank everybody in his audience for being such stand-up people and wishing me the best all the way through our little debate. It was really, really wonderful. I really enjoyed you guys. Thank you very much. Look, this was really an easy debate. He conceded a bunch right off the bat. He conceded the state of Pangea the Earth was in when the dinosaurs walked the Earth. So if we prove that they just walked the Earth, they were walking the Earth 10,000 years ago, that means Pangea existed 10,000 years ago. And so, the waters didn't have to flood over all these great mountains and, cross all the, go all the way around the world. It was one continent. It was easy to do. The mountains didn't have to be that high. The water could have just sloshed back and forth, and it was done.
He conceded that at the end of 10 half-lives, virtually nothing was left, even though he tried to say that, well, that ain't what it meant. Yeah, I'm sorry it was. He suggested that ice could preserve soft tissues for millions of years. The only problem is none of these soft tissues from dinosaur bones were preserved in ice, or said to be preserved in ice. So he's got to come up with another way to come up with more than 200-fold increase in stability if he wants to get back to 65 million years ago. If you have a 117-year half-life of the end of 10 half-lives, you've only got 1,170 years. Even if you give that a 200-fold increase, you're only at 234,000 years old. So yes, then you've got to test them for carbon-14. And the funny thing is, every single one of them failed that. And he admitted to that. He conceded that point. Yes, but. There is no yes, but. They failed. They tested younger than 50,000 years old. They tested the youngest one 9,000 years ago. 9,000. This puts it in the younger Dryas. Working with mankind, walking with him. Now, and look, what he got in this, that's just the tip of the iceberg of all this stuff that proves them wrong. And look, here's a paper. He kept saying, well, that's old work. We know how to fully explain it now, how this stuff could have lasted, for 65 million years. No, you don't. No, you don't. Here's a paper from 2023, this year. And look, Schweitzer's in this paper too. And she admits that some people just aren't buying deep time anymore. Why? Because they find it unlikely. Based on science, based on biological half-lives, real numbers, not just theoretical science. See, catastrophism used to be a real thing. It used to be the prominent view. People looked at things like the Scablands and they said, look, this is absolute proof of the flood. They looked at the fact that all of these giant floodplains all around the world were just filled with dinosaurs that had washed into these floodplains, and they said, look, all of this happened at the same time. All of this happened at the same time, where these dinosaurs were flooded into these floodplains. And they were right. They say there's no evidence for a worldwide flood when they're sitting there lying to us, because in the very next breath they'll tell you, yes, there were worldwide floods, many of them that took place during the Triassic period. Yes, over a 2 million year period. So they're couching this worldwide flood into a 2 million year period and drawing it out. So they can tell you, I'm sorry, there was never enough water to do this for Noah's flood. Knowing they're lying to you the whole time. But now that these soft tissues prove that these dinosaur bones are not tens of millions of years old, this proves further that these bones are recent deaths. There is no time for evolution. There simply isn't. And the best they can do is try to quiet the evidence. Shh. Don't tell nobody. God bless you all. I love you all.